9 o'clock, so welcome everyone. I do have an apology for slight lateness for Amber. She's only saying 5 or 10 minutes, so apology for lateness for Amber, but everyone else is here. So welcome to this committee meeting. So if there's nothing further, we'll go to the minutes of the last meeting. No declarations of minutes. Thank you, Councillor Burdett. Moved by Councillor Burdett, second by Councillor Foster. Any matters arising from those minutes?
3.2 on the action sheet. We'll wait on all the trust in the park. Township plan, that's still 2.5 years away, Mr. Chairman. If that, and I don't think it's ever intended to be part of the Rotorua Township plan. His worship has already moved $30,000 from that 500,000 be given to place with Whakaroa Park for redevelopment. So all I've asked for, given that it's been approved in the past, it was in the budget, I got this, it just disappeared. Ask for some support in terms of the rather antisocial activity that's been happening in Rotorua for some time. It's a must, not a given, and I have been talking to a couple of funders without much success, I might say, at this point in time.
Is there power at the pole, or is it a matter of getting power there as well?
No, there's power just there.
Yeah. So not.
But Andrew's Poseida, Laird, he's been to have a look apparently.
No.
Yeah, so he might be better informed than Andrew.
Is he? Sure, that went right around just like that. So, yeah, perhaps if you can get a bit more, status on it. Yeah.
I'll look into that and get an update.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we just remove that hole in the fence at football?
Done and dusted, is it?
Yeah, actually being fixed before I'd actually mouthed off about it. Sorry, so my apologies. But yeah, you can remove that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, we did move on to the action item. There was nothing from the actual agenda. No. All right, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, first paper we got is come. Yep. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, there's a staff present to update the Youth Council action item.
All right, thank you. I don't think it's appropriate. It is a leasing arrangement operation, so I don't think it's appropriate for this committee to get too much into that discussion unless Andrew wants to.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So that came up at the last committee meeting around the rental for Te Puia, and I did get, it's actually a finance and audit question, probably more than a ComDev question, but I'm happy to give some. No, it's on our action sheet, so I'm happy to give some feedback on it, which will hopefully allow us to close it off. So that the original rental for Te Puia Service Centre and Dog Pound was set some time ago with our CCO Gisborne Holdings Limited, and that has gone up by that amount that was covered off in the report at last committee for a couple of reasons. So GHL invested significant capital in upgrading the building, upgrading the house to be the offices, and also septage management for the dog pound as well. So the rental has increased by CPI, but also there's been an increase to cover off on those capital costs of the upgrade as well. So that's what the change has been in the last year.
Councillor Housen.
Just for clarity then, that the rent is now 101,000 per annum for that location, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
And do we recover any from the other activity there? Or is it all Does it just fit? I mean, I'm just trying to understand because, I mean, you can rent 1,000 square meters in town here for far less than that.
Yeah, I think when we're getting into that level of detail, it's probably not really appropriate for me to answer that question. That is a question of finance and audit around the relationship with Gisborne Holdings Limited in terms of that commercial relationship, if that's okay. Yeah.
The Endeavour replicas, perhaps? It's kind of stalled, I think. Yeah. No? Thanks, Malcolm.
No, thanks, Mr. Chair. No, it's far from stalled. The latest update, according to my records, is now $19,754. So I've surpassed the figure that they asked us to get, the 19 grand that they were short. We've now surpassed it, so there's probably no reason why it shouldn't move ahead.
Okay.
We have paper on that, don't we?
Pardon?
Don't we have paper on this?
It was only a short sentence in there,
No.
saying it was still 6.5 short.
So how would you anticipate moving forward from this?
Through the chair, at the time of writing the report for the endeavours, that was the information I had to hand. Obviously, since then, I've been in communication with Councillor McLean, and now stand that week. Funding is now sorted, so we are progressing.
Yeah, through the chair, Good Friday was a good day for us because I got donated $5,500, so that's brought it right up. So,
Thank you.
right,
Yeah, it's where I thought it had stalled, but it's got there.
it's got there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see progress there. Councillor Biddick?
I don't know whether this is not finance either. A couple of meetings in Te Aroa, the community and myself were informed that $500,000, 500,000 that we've allocated to the communities is now spread between Tigerick, Rangituhia, Te Aroa, Hicks Bay and Lock Point, which is totally contrary to what the original intent was. We had allocated $500,000 to Rangituhia and Tigerick, Te Aroa and Hicks Bay. Now I can back that up with when David and I went to a meeting in Hicks Bay, Weaver Wharf. The community at that stage, they've since changed their mind, we're going to allocate their $250 share to the wharf upgrade. So suddenly this has all been changed and causing a fair bit of angst. I might, council's not an Indian giver, surely.
Through the chair, I don't think it is a finance and audit question. I think the township plan program, maybe it's worth having a formal report update on that back to this committee and covering off on the decisions that council has made, clarifying the decisions that council has made around those township plans through the last LTP. Because I think that question also came up at Tiki Tiki
Yes.
as well, and there was a fair bit of discussion around it. You're right, there was some concern, but also I think the feedback that Deputy Chief Executive gave at that meeting was that council had actually made that decision through its long-term plan, so there might be some clarification required around that decision making.
By a degree of subterfuge, if I'm permitted to say, Mr. Chairman, none of us knew about it till that public meeting.
Right. We did just have an update on the township plans and there was similar concerns raised when what was moved with Maratuka as well. So it does seem to have changed a little bit in the scope. Yeah, that update would be good.
If I might comment, Mr. Chairman, I think it's totally unfair that those 5 communities should share what was not originally intended.
Okay, point heard. Thanks very much. Nothing else?
Okay. Kia ora koutou. I understand that there were some questions in relation to the last meeting about the youth council. Oh, sorry. I understand that there was some questions at the last ComDev meeting in relation to the Youth Council. We're currently reviewing the Youth Council with particular emphasis on its roles and objectives. I'd like to introduce Chris Gilmore, who's undertaking that review, and we look to have a paper to the next ComDev meeting, which will outline a way forward for them.
Councillor Houser.
I guess from my point of view, it's just that we haven't seen the Youth Council and we don't engage with the Youth Council, and that seems like a failure in communication to me. I think we should be interacting. I think that as governors, we should be trying to sort of impart any knowledge and wisdom about the processes that we go through that we can, and we should be working collaboratively on potential projects and concepts. And I just think it's a missed opportunity if we don't interact more. So more than how we go forward, I think it's just important that we all get in the room together at some stage.
Yeah, and it is quite disappointing because I've actually been trying to get them in this room for quite some time now, and it has been an action item to have them in front of us. Quite a few meetings, and it's been a case of next meeting for quite a while now. We always, when we have the public meetings like last night, we had a meeting where the questions always raised, we're doing spatial planning for the future. We've got to hear the youth voice. But in saying that, I know how my kids run their life. And, I was at that age. It's not easy because it's, that whole civic space is hard to get that engagement, but we've got to figure it out somehow.
Yeah, there's a number of issues. They're very much underutilised as the Youth Council, and that reverts back to the role and objectives for what they were established, and also the support structures that are in place to enable them to do the work that they want to do. Also the allocation of work and the program that they have, that they actually determine themselves. So there's a range of issues that we need to sort of look at and to report back to ComDev to actually use them in the way that that they can add value to the work that we do as council.
Councillor Foster?
Yeah, just adding to that, the spatial plan in particular is a really important document, and the workshops that we've been doing in the evenings, there's some really good topics that would be really cool to have the Youth Council involved with. So what my question would be is how do we interact with the spatial plan concept with the Youth Council? There's quite a few things there that maybe doesn't interest them so much with the land use possibly, but a lot of things could be grouped in to make it a really, instead of having 6 workshops, having one day where the Youth Council was totally interacted with the workshop concept of the spatial plan, and we get some feedback from them, because it's really important to have that youth perception behind what we're planning for the next 30 to 40 years. So I would like to see some program that we can put forward for the Youth Council, read the spatial plan.
Councillor McLean? Or do you want that? Yeah, we'll go Councillor McLean. Come back.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sitting in our gallery today is Alice Kibble, who's part of the youth organisation, and I believe she is prepared to make some comments if that's what you wish, because there is a struggle with that group, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Did you come here with the purpose of presenting?
No, I don't think she did.
No.
I don't think she did. I think she just turned up to listen.
Come from her.
Yeah, but just saying it, she's here.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment through the chair? So Anita and Chris have committed to coming back to the next committee meeting with an update and a proposal, as I understand it, around the Youth Council. And I think, even if we had a workshop session or something around what councillors' views are and what the Youth Council's perspective is as well, in the lead up to that, that could be quite helpful. I think it's really good to get these thoughts on the table, and it's It's a shame that we haven't been able to have the discussion before now, but I think the wheels are truly rolling now to get this into an effective space. So if the committee's happy to wait till the
Yeah,
next
thanks. I
committee meeting.
think that'd be a lot more valuable than going to off the cuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, having a workshop and having youth council there as well, because I think we're missing some opportunities. I've had a few community groups ring, and one in particular just recently, which is the Sister Cities, really looking to have increased younger members on there and wanting youth council. And I appreciate, Anita, that you're relatively new to the role because the other one's been seconded. But they're wanting to have younger people involved. And I think that's really important. So yeah, the workshop would be great.
Okay, Councillor Dowsey.
Thank you. Just as this has been going on for 6 months, trying to get this ball rolling, perhaps it'll be easier with our flexibility, even in light of one thing. The councillors can bend their schedule to meet the needs of others, so maybe in light of one thing.
Yeah, good point.
Just to let you know that the Youth Council is currently not sitting at the moment. We have seconded Eddie Ashville to Te Ha, who was the administrative support and provided the leadership for the Youth Council. So it has been relatively inactive since October last year. So it is timely that we do the review to look at the support that we give it going forward, because one person managing the Youth Council is not sufficient resources to enable it to do what it needs to do.
All right, see what comes out of the next meeting. Any other matters? Welcome, Councillor Dunn. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to page. Do you want to make a comment on it? You can. So who am I asking? Oh, we have got them here. Oh, where is it? Oh, yeah. Sorry, okay, Olympic pool redevelopment project budget carry over. We've got Robson here. Thanks. Moved by Councillor Dowsey, second by Councillor Foster. Welcome, Robson. Nothing you want to add to the report, Robson?
So, good morning all. No, there's nothing that I would like to add to the report. I believe that it is included within that document.
Probably the question I had is, and it's probably outside the redevelopment itself, but just because the redevelopment is going to take at least 3 or 4 years, have we got sufficient to keep the pool going at a standard that we're happy with until then? You know, as far as repairs and maintenance and all those sort of issues that we always hear about.
Thanks. Well, that's a good question. I've talked on a number of occasions about the concerns I have about the Olympic pool complex and the various maintenance issues that are coming up, and we have briefed council through the major project that one of the reasons why this major project is so important is because we're heading into significant decline with the pool. We get that feedback around declined condition of dressing rooms, pool surfaces. We know that our filtration systems are coming to end of life. All those sorts of things that I've talked about, the increasing maintenance costs that we're going to have over time around that, to the point that actually some of the assets won't be able to be maintained anymore, and we'll be needing to exit some facilities at the pool if we don't deal with the major redevelopment. So I think next LTP, if we haven't progressed significantly around the funding for the Olympic pool complex, we'll be having a different conversation around maintenance and renewal of existing assets. And there could be some quite significant dollars involved in that discussion. At the moment, we think we've got it under control, but we have started talking about potential reallocation of some of this capital that council's put into this project to maintenance renewal items around pool surfacing, the sand filter, and a couple of other things. So expect a paper coming back in the next few months around that potentially.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
My question was, we're approving the underspend to be carried forward of $1 million. The budget was 1,250,000. What was the 250,000 spent on?
We have been doing a bit of design work in terms of the refinement through the feedback that we've received through our peer reviews. There's been project management costs in there as well. And we will be looking through the rest of this financial year, potentially looking to engage further consultants to carry out the remaining design and work that is required. Yeah.
Right. So 250 was pretty much spent on just getting that design work up to.
And the review process.
And review process.
Yep. So not the peer review process, but the review process of the actual project itself and the work that's going on.
That's this year's financial budget, so it's ongoing through this whole year. There's work that's to be done. It's a budget, not a spend.
So, sorry, there's still money in that out of that 250 to be spent for this for the next financial year as well. We're carrying forward $1 million. Sorry.
Through the chair, so we expect to spend $250,000 on the project to the end of this year. We haven't spent all of that $250,000, but what we're saying is that we want to carry forward the remainder because we expect to spend that $250,000. Now, Robson's right that actually the two elements of that $250,000 are the design work, so that's the complete design work to this point, which includes the original concept work and the refinement of the design following council's last decision around working with stakeholders to refine that design. So we're progressing through that at the moment. Also, bear in mind that the cost of the project manager also sits within the capital, so we capitalise Robson's time.
Councillor David.
Thank you. You mentioned that we are in a state where we're locked between seeking additional funding and worrying about the ongoing potential maintenance issues arising in the future. Obviously, we've got budget assigned at the moment. What is it that's stopping us from being able to achieve the additional budget to carry out the project? Is there something council can do to assist that process, or is it something that is just operational and difficult to achieve that funding?
Thank you, Councillor Dowsing. That's a very good question. So you'll recall the estimated project cost for this project is around $28 million. Council's put in its $5.5 million seed funding to that. Typically, when going out for funding applications, the project owner will put in a third, at least, of the project cost. Council hasn't achieved that for a number of reasons, because the original estimate was 17 million or something from the business case work that was done back in 2017. The concept that council adopted as its preferred option was estimated at $28 million for the two phases, the indoor and the outdoor phase. So we've had conversations with a number of funders, in fact, all of the major funders. So that's Eastland Community Trust, ECCT through the Funders Forum, New Zealand Community Trust and Lotteries. The only one of those funders that actually grants significant funds that will make this project work is ECT. So Lotteries, they'll do up to a couple of $1 million, I think, potentially, but that's not definite. That's sort of their limit, I think. New Zealand Community Trust is lesser, and so is ECCT. So that's where our issues are. What I know that the funders are looking for is they're looking for more detail and certainty around where we're going before they commit to anything. And at the moment, what we have is we have broad concept options, which don't give them the confidence yet that we have lined everything up. So You know, in a way, we're in early stages of this project, although it's been talked about for well over 10 years. We're in the early stages of this design, and I understand that if somebody was asking for $10 million from me, I would be asking for quite a bit in return in terms of detail to give me the confidence that I should put my 10 million into it.
Supplementary then, you mentioned we're essentially under budgeted in our strategy for this because the design options have come in far higher. Is it, and I commended staff on their ability to pivot on the museum roof and change the design to fit within the budget. Is this another case where we're progressing forward with the current strategy doesn't actually allow us to complete the job because the strategy is fundamentally flawed because we're under budgeted at our end, where we've got a design that exceeds the structure of what we've got, and we're asking for more than is likely to be granted. Should we be going back to the drawing board on the strategy, but not scrapping the project? You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's potentially a question for council as a whole, as opposed to a question for me as the officer. So actually you, council, or this community has a complex, although it is dated and aged a complex which actually provides quite a high level of service to the community. It's got really good outdoor facilities. It's got a 50-metre indoor pool, and actually communities of this size don't typically have 50-metre indoor pools, but it's a legacy that has value. So actually, if we're going back to council's going back to the strategy of what it should be providing an Olympic pool complex, it has some big questions to answer around the level of service that it has provided in the past through community-funded facilities, and whether it actually wants to change that level of service, I would say downwards in terms of what it has provided in the past. If council wants to have that conversation, of course, we can support that.
Councillor Biddy. Just having heard Andrew and a couple of questions Shannon's asked, how real is it that council's going to stump up with $9 million, if that's what you're saying, given when we come to build this book? How real is that we'd agree to that? We've never funded to that degree anything in my whole time in council. And given the complexities of trying to get funding from known funders who normally support big communities like Gisborne, what's your view of that?
It's a council decision.
Yeah.
It's not Andrew's decision.
That's right, it's not my decision, but you've asked me for what my professional view is, and I'm happy to give that. Look, I don't think it's without hope, Councillor Burdett. I think we are going through the right process here in terms of continuing to provide the level of service for our community that we typically have in the past. And yeah, if we get to the point where actually this project needs to be de-scoped, that's the time to have the conversation about how it is de-scoped. This is relatively aspirational for council, but I don't think there's any reason not to be aspirational. There are funds out there that could be brought to bear on this project, and I think it's behoving on us to actually go through the process of doing our very best to achieve those funds for our community.
Supplementary, Mr. Chairman, don't get me wrong, I'm a total support of pool and have been. However, when I look in here and I see Sport New Zealand and then our local one lining up, not in agreement with the 50-metre pool, I just think, well, have we overcome that particular question for a start?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah. My next question would be, so with Sport New Zealand and Sport Gisborne promoting the 25-metre pool rather than 50, when will we be at a stage when we've got a final design that we are confident that this is it and this is what we're taking to the funders, and we're at that stage where we've got everyone on board. I mean, I know there's a bit of consultation to be had, but we're not really moving rapidly on this, and but we're nearly at a stage where, okay, we've got all the jigsaw bits and pieces coming together, and when if they come together for at least getting to that funding stage, and everyone's in agreement on what we're going to have, then the progress could be a lot faster.
You're right about progress. We've spent well over 10 years getting to where we are, but I would say in the last 2 years, we've progressed significantly further than we had in the first 8 or 12 years of that process. So, and in terms of the resolving the issues that principally Sport Gisborne has had with Sport New Zealand as their advisor, we have agreement in principle with them about where we're going, and that still includes a 50-metre pool. So, we are doing pretty well, I think, or the team's doing pretty well, I think, in progressing those discussions, because that was actually quite a difficult issue to deal with around our local sports trust, which is a community representative, and the national body having a different perspective to where council got to in its preferred option. So you're right, we have the community engagement process to go through once we've got that those refined options available, but I would say end of financial.
So by the end of this financial year, we will have the refined design options that have been a really positive collaboration between ourselves, our partner Sport Gisborne, and also Sport New Zealand. So we will have the concept drawings at the same level of detail as the 2017 concepts for a refined concept option that does include a 50-metre pool. So we are sitting around the table in agreement with that, with Sport Gisborne and Sport New Zealand. So there has been quite a bit of development there.
Yeah, so to supplement that, I mean, if for instance, we had a design, we basically had everything all there, and then Sport New Zealand came along and said, no, we don't agree with you, and then Sport Gisborne backed them, and that's actually put us back, a year almost, hasn't it? So, and then we might end up with the decision that we're going to continue with the 50-metre pool, which it kind of makes the whole thing a bit of a mockery, actually. When we allow ourselves to be dictated to by, I mean, you've got to have all the feedback coming back, but it just seems like it's stalling the whole progress of it big time.
If I can support Robson there, I think he's just indicated that progress is quite good, and the comments around stalling and that I don't think are actually factual. I think there is real progress being made. So if we go back to the paper specifically, I mean, it is about the carrying forward of the budget for the redevelopment. Yeah. Oh, sorry, did I miss you? Sorry, Councillor.
Just following on from that conversation, as we've been progressing this since Sport Gisborne and Sport New Zealand have been involved, have our other community groups been involved with that conversation as well? Or has this just been Council, Sport Gisborne and Sport New Zealand, and the other stakeholders have been left out?
To date,
I'm just trying to understand what's happened.
Yes. To date, the working group has been ourselves, Sport Gisborne, Tairāwhiti, and Sport New Zealand, and with Sport Gisborne, Tairāwhiti being the voice of the local sporting community. We are in the process of setting up an advisory group for this project, which will include the wider community groups. Much like in 2017 when we had our reference group.
Okay, so just trying to understand what's happened is all of those other stakeholders that are interested in this topic haven't been included in any of this discussion that's been held with those two entities.
They have not been part of those meetings, no. However, it's been a refinement process in terms of we haven't been significantly changing the infrastructure. We have just been addressing the concerns that were directly made through those peer reviews.
So is there an intention to take that redesign out to further public consultation than the interested parties at this stage?
Yes, so when we have the documents in hand, we will be going out to the community for community engagement. However, this working group has been progressing those designs. And like I say, they have been addressing the direct concerns that have been raised by these by the key partner in our community strategy, our community facility strategies for Gisborne Tairāwhiti, with assistance from Sport New Zealand.
Councillor Dowson.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but I think where what Councillor Dunn was alluding to, that our key stakeholder is the recreational user, because there are more of those users than sport users, I believe. So taking a sporting perspective is all well and good, but really recreational users also need to be consulted as much, if not more, due to the proportion of use.
Point noted.
All right, so we've had movers and seconds for the carrying forward of the budget. Recommendation as it's written. Nothing further. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Robson. Okay, page 20, we've got the Inner Harbour and Marina ramp pontoons update. Lead Kennedy, welcome, Lead. Anything you want to allude us to or point here?
This report is basically in regards to the fact that the boat ramp and Inner Harbour pontoons are in dire need of being looked at. They have been indicated by both our health and safety team, as well as the harbour master as a health and safety risk and need to be addressed.
Councillor Dowson.
Thank you. I'll move this and would appreciate some pretty immediate action, certainly on the one that's in place at the Inner Harbour. But I'd really like some information about the redesign that was mentioned in here. As it was being relocated or something along those lines to Central on the, which there's no details or drawings or anything of. So I didn't actually know, because it's not central on the ramp, and it's sort of, so it's very unclear.
Yeah, thanks. Sir.
And the other point I was going to make as well was just that a recent visit to Poltron, I found out that they made pontoon mooring systems for a client, so they may be worth a discussion. Poltron Composites.
Just with regard to where the money's coming from, would it not be more sensible to wait and see what the total cost of those, just in case there's overruns there and we don't then affect this budget by not? Yeah, how much confidence do we have that there's absolutely not going to be an overspend on that?
The suggestion of coming from the museum budget, the roof repair, there is a contingency in there to swing either way for both the pontoons and, if need be, the roof repair as well. So,
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, so yeah, my question would be, what stage are we at with the museum roof, with the repairs on it? Because this has been an ongoing saga for years and years, and I would hate to think that we're going to sacrifice the roof repair for another. And I understand, totally. The pontoon is really urgent, but so is the roof. I mean, and we're looking at October for a completion date for to at least know that the roof is sound and there's no leakages coming through. And I understand there is some major problems there still, especially autumn with leaves and But I'd hate to think that by cutting that budget, we're leaving the museum totally vulnerable. It's like paying for Peter to pay Paul. I mean,
there's no intention of sacrificing the museum roof, particularly with the October commemorations coming up. Regarding the roof, that we are working through that, and our preferred contractor is he's working through SHE qualification as we speak, and we've agreed a scope of works in regards to the museum roof, and we are reasonably confident in regards to the costings applied to the roof repair that the figures will work for the pontoon replacement.
Is that the same confidence we had of achieving the toilet
Yeah.
at half the budget that we're achieving it at.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
No, sorry, go on.
Councillor Dunn.
Following on the same thing there, what you said just there and what's written in this paper are quite different. Because when I read with the budget for the museum roof repair likely to come in under budget, that doesn't give me any certainty that we aren't jeopardising the museum. There is a paper later in the report that gives it a little bit more, pads it out a little bit more, but likely to come in under budget doesn't fill me with any confidence that we're not jeopardising the museum. And I think that's probably, sounds like what we're all feeling. We're not 100% certain that we aren't jeopardising it. I fully support the pontoons being upgraded. We've talked about the inner harbour. I think the one at the marina is equally just important. Our growing Wakaama community, I know, uses that a lot, well, used to, when it was still there. So yeah, what's written in the report doesn't actually make me feel confident about the museum, but you're saying that it is, and I'm sure the other staff will probably back you up with that. So if you'd put that in there with more powerful language, absolutely certain, not likely, then yeah, you probably won't be getting these questions.
Councillor Burdett.
Yeah, no disrespect to staff, Mr. Chairman. Let's fix one problem before we try fixing the second one. That museum roof has been with us for some time. We've had numerous reports, to be honest. So all I'm saying is, Mr. Chairman, let's get it fixed, it's signed off, paid for, and then we'll address the other one.
Councillor Dowsing.
I want to be really clear to council here about why it's important we do this, and it's because one of these aspects has a health and safety risk. The other is a roof that has potential leaking issues. One of them supersedes the other by a long way. We have a very real health and safety risk right now in our community. We have identified budget here that can do it. Staff are giving us the confidence that they can do both. There's no reason not to shift this budget, in my opinion, and get that health and safety risk fixed.
Can we reword the recommendation something along the lines of, well, reallocating two budgets from the one? The budget for the museum roof is now X dollars, and the budget for the pontoons is X budget, rather than it coming from the roof budget.
Mr. Chairman, what if there's a cost overrun in the museum roof?
I can probably solve this if we just reallocate enough to do the inner harbour program partnership and remove the marina, and that leaves us plenty of headroom. Councillors are happy with that? So for the reallocation of portion of the museum fund roof capital project, we're replacing the inner harbour program. It doesn't include both because the marina is not existent at the moment, so it's not a health and safety risk. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Andrew.
Can I make a suggestion? A few concerns have come up in the discussion. I think Councillor Dowsing has hit the nail on the head around health and safety risk to our community. This is something that council has built and owns, and it has been assessed as being unsafe for use. And so it is a priority. Now, I understand what Councillor Dunn is saying, and I agree, because we removed that pontoon year before last, I think, because it was basically falling apart. And we were committed to replacing it, putting a new pontoon in. Now, I think Lee had said before, he's reasonably confident through the discussions with the contractor who will be doing the museum roof that the contractor will do it for around the sum that's been identified, but he said reasonably, not definitely. So you know, maybe there is still a little bit of risk in there, but I would say it's probably not a significant risk. But maybe the approach to take, if you want to go this way, is that you don't remove one of the pontoons, but you actually say your priority is to do the inner harbour pontoon. Should funds remain from the museum roof, you will do the marina museum, the marina pontoon, and you go into that way of thinking with reasonable level of confidence that actually what Leah is saying is right, that actually there is sufficient budget to do all of it. But you focus on doing the Inner Harbour one first, but you don't exclude the Marina one from this resolution.
Councillor Dunn?
I just want to make it clear, this isn't about one being more important than the other. Yes, I agree health and safety is important, without a doubt. I think the key issue here is where the money is coming from and that it doesn't jeopardise an existing project. While the museum is not health and safety, it is a massive repository of our history and our culture. So that shouldn't be jeopardised either. So this isn't about, I don't think we should be arguing over what's more important. It's about where is the money coming from that we've got issues with. If we are going to delay the Marina car park, the Marina ramp pontoon, I know it is an asset for our Wakaama community and it is important. I'm still not comfortable that we say if there's budget left over, we'll do it. What's the next port of call if there is no budget? How do we ensure that that pontoon will actually happen? Where will we get funding from if there's none left over? So we can say to our recreational users of the Marina pontoon that it will go in. Will that have to be an annual plan change or?
Through the chair, it would need to either be an annual plan change or a reallocation of existing budget, capital budget within the Livable Communities Hub from another renewal project. And you actually have, in a later paper this morning, a schedule of proposed carry forwards, and that might be a worthy discussion at that point as well.
So I think the debate's going in circles a little bit. This is actually, this is the only time we've ever had an opportunity to assign any funding to the Marina pontoon. So by not doing this, it just goes back into the status quo. So it's not like, I think this is our opportunity to shift some funds. I like the prioritisation order, makes perfect sense, because if we don't have any funds left, we don't have any funds left and we need to find it somewhere else anyway. So I've already moved something, I can't move it again then. I didn't get a seconder, but I'm happy for that. Oh, did you second me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As worded.
Yeah, it was as worded, but I think we should include the prioritisation order as recommended by Mr. White as good practice.
Second, happy with that? Right. Lots of confidence around the cost of the roof. What's the confidence around the new cost of the pontoons?
Currently, we are at an estimate stage. Nobody's been willing with our current budget to actually stand up and put a dollar figure on it. So we are, given the conversations that have been had so far, we are reasonably confident. Reasonably confident.
Amber? No. All right, we'll leave it there. All those in favour? Oh, restate the motion, so there's a bit of rewording there. Councillor Dowson?
Number 2, approves the reallocation of a portion of the museum roof capital project to replace the Inner Harbour boat ramp pontoons and, if budget allows, the Marina pontoons.
And the seconder was happy with that, so all in favour?
Sorry, can you just
Carried.
reread that?
So-
on one thing?
Of pontoons, well, yeah, I guess, yeah. Approves the reallocation of a portion of the museum roof capital project to the replacing of the Inner Harbour boat ramp pontoon and, budget allowing, the Marina pontoon.
Okay, Heather? Yep. All right, all in favour? Against, carried. Okay, we're 24, carryover requests. Surprised to see how many there were. What did I have? Oh, the Narra Bay project, I haven't seen the full scope of that anywhere. So what's involved in that? The Anara Bay.
Anota Bay is the basically excavation and forming of roadworks and car parks around the arrival site.
With the new toilet.
And
Must be where the new toilet is, right where the road is. Yes.
Yeah, so as you come down the bottom of the hill, as you come into Anota Bay, there's that road reserve that has the, I think there's a Cook Memorial there. So at the moment, that is just basically a piece of road with a whole lot of grass and drain and so forth on it with no car parking. And we installed a toilet largely funded by the Tourism Infrastructure Fund there after quite strong views from the community came through around public conveniences because it is a reasonably highly visited area. And so we installed a public toilet there, but at that time we were also talking about turning it into a real arrival zone for Anota Bay, moving back the camp encroachments onto the road reserve, putting in place car parking, putting in place landscaping, proper drainage. When we went to the Tolaga Bay community kapa this round, there was also further talk from that local community around whether we could put in better environmental drainage in that location too. So it's fairly broadly scoped, but it's focused on actually turning that in a nice place for people to arrive at Anota Bay and then be able to access the beach there.
Councillor Dunn?
So just following on from the chair's question, we will be getting a picture of what this is going to be in sometime soon, or?
currently, all we have to hand is a bird's eye view concept of what it looks like.
Okay.
We can
So my actual question I wanted to ask was regarding the Waikanai Midway Improvement Project. I don't know much about that one either, and I would love to know whether that horrible vertical concrete wall that's between the North Walkway, where does it say here, Grey Street to the tennis court, is that part of the improving the area to remove that wall?
We're going to paint.
It can form part of the scope. We want to basically continue the good work that was done down the other end towards Midway, and
Yeah.
so that if anything's, it's an
So
aesthetic
will we
approach.
getting plans for this improvement project as well sometime in the next year, or? It's the first I've heard about it, reading this paper.
So that, remember from the last long-term plan, the focus around capital works in livable communities was around renewal of existing assets and not increasing levels of service, because council's priorities were around roading and its waters. So this is actually, apart from components of the township plans, this is actually probably the only upgrade work that we've got around our parks assets. I think it's perfectly reasonable that a report comes back to committee on the concept when that concept is prepared and the committee actually approves that concept. Similarly with Anota Bay, I think there's been some really good work done there with the community around getting to the point where we've got a preferred design, and I think that's completely appropriate to come back to the committee as well.
Okay, we're
Sorry. The Botanical Gardens pond desludging, is there any risk to public health by delaying this? Because word from the community is it's pretty putrid.
I guess there is if you plunge into it.
It's pretty full of gunk. I think there is always a certain level of public risk when you've got a lot of birds around these sorts of places too. So is there a particular community risk in delaying this for another year? It's probably not an increased community risk from where we've been in the last couple of years, but those ponds are pretty full and they're pretty foul as well. So it's one thing that I think I'd really like to see us get done as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's saying in here that it's going to be delayed till 2021. long-term plan. So that's actually a couple of years away. That's why given how bad it is right now, can we be waiting 2 years is the concern I have.
The issue that we're facing currently is the fact that the budget allowance of 40,000 is under. It's not sufficient for the work that's required. From what we've been told, dumping fees alone for the sludge are massive. Apparently for 500 cubic metres of sludge, we're talking $55,000 alone. So we need to try and make...
I've got Councillor Foster, Councillor McLean, Councillor Dowsett. Medal, please.
Agree, and it's just going back to the Waikanae Midway Improvement Project, 30K of this budget has been allocated to installation of a new sculpture, which will occur in this financial year. Is that the surf sculpture, is it? Yeah, okay, cool.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I want to talk about the sporting grounds and mainly the Oval. About 7 years ago, it might have even been longer than that, there was an assessment done on the Oval. In fact, experts from Fulton Hogan brought some experts up from Wellington, gave us the assessment, told us what was required. This was to the rugby union, but GDC were there. And the following year, they were going to do one field, and the year after that, they're going to do the other. I presume we're talking about the same thing, because I don't think those fields have been done, have they? That was about 7 years ago.
I can't speak to the original assessment that was done, but the intent is to achieve.
There should be some assessment here,
Yeah.
sitting with GDC somewhere, I'd have thought.
But Rick Services have that specific expertise, don't they? Surf management and all that, was part of the attraction.
I think, so Rec Services is probably one of New Zealand's best turf specialist contractors, and that is one reason why they were attractive, one of many reasons why they were attractive as a preferred contractor. They also have a specialist technical organisation that works alongside them, which is owned by the same company, that provides technical advice, but there's a potential conflict of interest there in terms of tendering these sorts of works using that technical advice. I haven't seen the reports from 7 or so years ago. Probably would have been more if it was Fulton Hogan, because Downer had been the contractor for quite a long period before Recreational Services. The Oval, the work that we've done on it since I've been here, which is just over 4 years, is actually only turf work, getting the sward up to a much better condition than it was back in 2015 when I started. What we're talking about here is more reconstruction type work because of decisions that have been made in the past around the quality of that ground that the turf is on there.
As you'll probably recall, then one of the resurfacing actions, the topsoil was full of gravel type substance, and that's where the whole thing fell apart, and they worked hard to try and get rid of it. And I still think there's still some stony areas on that ground.
Thank you. Councillor Dowsett.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask about that as well, but no. I've got enough information. And what I was going to ask about the pond desludging as well. Just you mentioned that dumping at 55K. Is there not an opportunity to compost that sludge instead of dumping it?
I don't believe so, given the fecal matter from ducks and the other contaminants.
It's probably very similar to the fecal matter from all the slugs and things in our biofiltration system for the wastewater treatment plant, and we'll be composting that at some stage. So it may be worth investigating.
All right, that's it, is it? Yeah. Councillor Burdett, yeah.
It's not just a toilet relocation, it includes car parks and playground as well. 150,000
That would only be toilet, surely. You can't tell me that you get a playground, parking, toilet hall for $100,000. Is that in the long-term plan? It's relocation, that's what I'm just, I want clarification on this, because last community meeting, they asked
For these particular facilities.
Through the chair, it's for the toilet. That's what council has committed to through its long-term plan. And there have been ongoing discussions over the last year, I think, with staff who are now in transformational relationships hub around the development of the playground, and that's all in good faith. Playground and park, in association of the toilet with that, rather than the location that's been proposed for the toilet. But it's not funded at this point. There are many, many things that council needs to consider for its next long-term plan, and I think that will be one of them.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Parahima.
Given what I've heard, I'm still not entirely satisfied that we're pushing that pond desludging out in regards to the entire paper, because the decision that's been asked is to approve the carryovers and revising plan budget, etc., which means that we're essentially saying, no, we're not going to desludge that in the timeframes that we're committed to. And out of everything that's in that paper, that's the one thing that I can't actually support. Sorry.
Perhaps I can clarify something. So there are two projects in this long-term plan for the Botanical Gardens ponds. One of them is the desludging, and the other one is installation of a filtration system that will reduce the requirement to desludge in future. Now, the problem with the desludging is that this is a different sort of project. It's actually set up as an operational project because it's not, you can't capitalise desludging. You can capitalise a filtration system, but you can't capitalise desludging. I've talked to you several times in the last few months about the state of the reserve's operational budget. It has very little fat for additional works. So at the moment, we're spending money on picking up branches and things that have been blowing off in these winds. If you've looked at your finance and audit agenda, I think you'll see that we're projecting being pretty much bang on without any unexpecteds in terms of our budget across the whole livable communities OPEX at the end of this year. If we are to spend additional funds on completing this project around the desludging, that will put us over in terms of the livable spaces of operational budget, probably reasonably significantly over.
Okay, so to kind of further go on in regards to my point, the summation of my point isn't actually for us to overspend in regards to the pond desludging. I'm saying that coming back to us and saying we're going to do this in 2 years' time is unacceptable. I need to see some other better kind of options to us, because I literally can't support, no, we're not going to do this until 2021 and the time, until that 10-year plan. Happy to work in regards to compromise, because that's the business of council. But this is really quite finite in regards to telling us what's going to be happening with that pond desludging. And like has been echoed around the table, there's been a lot of community feedback about the putridness of that pond. So yeah, the majority of this paper I can support going through it. It makes rational sense. However, there's maybe just in regards to that particular point, part 11, maybe a bit undercooked, because there are other things too that I don't have the answers for. What had we allocated? How much would the potential be, in regards to, because just they told us it was 40K in terms of allocated operational budget, and then told us how much it would cost to just dump the pond desludging. However, there's no kind of fuller information that for me to actually go, yeah, now where this needs to be pushed out. So say if we were saying it was 40K that we had allocated, but it's going to cost 400K, then yeah, that's a huge thing, but it's just a little bit undercooked in regards for me to be able to make the decision. So yeah, so I'm not saying we need to throw huge amounts of money at it. I'm saying there's not enough here for me to go, yeah, I can fully support this thing as it is, I don't support that part. So maybe for those people that, I'm not sure if it's been moved or seconded, I would actually like to see this come back to us with more information, because I'd hate to make this decision with not enough information on behalf of government.
A similar sentiment. I think it's okay to receive the report that says we need to defer stuff. I get that. What's missing is that we're saying we're just going to defer it. There doesn't seem to be any desire to say we're going to make this a priority in the next annual plan. So we can say to our community, it's not just dropping off, it's not just getting pushed out. It is a priority and we are going to make it happen. I think that's kind of what I'm sitting here and that's what I want to hear. So we don't have the budget, okay, we get that. But when are we going to have the budget? And 2021 isn't acceptable. Is there anything there we can do between now and then to make these projects happen? Can we make it a annual plan priority? Can we get the money for it? That's what I'm sitting here wanting to hear about the stuff that's being deferred.
So, as a suggestion, we could move, approve the carryovers, revised annual plan budget to 2019 financial year, with the exception of the sludging of the botanical gardens, and that can come back as a separate item. You know, I think that would be probably the wisest thing to do, because it is, even our recommendations are pretty vague when it comes to that particular item as well. I mean, there's no finances or nothing behind it to give us certainty. So yeah, I would be happy to move that.
I'll second. Just on that note, you may also want to look into whether that sludge could go through our wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, so I do think we need a paper specifically on what we are going and when we're doing it. I don't know whether that actually does require it to move from the carryover request though, because it's going to have to be carried out at this stage. But yeah, it's the only one with that pushing out timelines. Yeah.
I'm happy to have on the action sheet a report on the botanical gardens ponds. I think that's completely appropriate. And actually, and I think the recommend resolution that's proposed is actually correct, because carryovers are about carrying over budget. And if there is no budget, which there isn't, we're already overspent in our livable spaces, you can't carry it over.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, as I said before, the majority of the items on that list are capital items. This is an operational item.
Okay, do you want that rewording, Heather? To pick it up, or shaking your head there?
You're taking that from the addition out.
Thing number 11 out.
No, there's a change of wording.
Through you, Chair, Mr. White has just said it's OPEX, not CAPEX. So there's no budget there, so it's not strictly speaking a carryover. So the extra statement can come out, with my understanding.
Just remove it. Yeah, makes sense to me. Just remove, just take 11 out.
I think what Ms. Con's saying is that actually that one actually wasn't requested as a carryover. It was 2021. We'll relook at it. So the recommendation as it is actually appropriate, because we weren't requesting a carryover on that particular project. We were just advising that we would like to relook at it again in 2021.
I'm sorry, but I thought I heard that there was a 40,000 OPEX budget allocated to this. and now the implications that that's not going to be spent in this financial year, and you're recommending for us to re-look at this project in 2021. So essentially the OPEX budget for this is actually being carried over.
The situation we're in is that the OPEX for livable spaces or for any other activity in council, for that matter, is looked at in the bottom line. So if there is an operational project within that bottom line for that activity, and that budget for that activity does not, in the bottom line, have those funds remaining, even if that project hasn't been spent, you can't carry it over.
Can I just make a suggestion that for the clarity for us and for the community, we just add approves the carryovers and revised annual plan budget to the 2019-2020 financial year, excluding number 11.
And we'll get further information from 11 going forward. Yeah, it'll be on the action sheet. Yep. Comfortable, Connie? Yep. All right, everyone's happy with that? All those in favour? Against? Carried. That was in the pocket. You got that? Must be cup of tea time. Yeah. We made a meal of it, now let's have a meal.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry. All right, page 33, Peel Street toilet update. Thanks, Lee.
This particular report's in regards to the fact that we now have confirmed costings for the toilet aspect of the project, as well as a proposed scope to work towards for the earthquake strengthening of the existing building. And yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Dowling.
Thank you. I'm going to start by saying that I'm not at all in favour of building a $215,000 toilet right next to another toilet. We, in discussion with staff when this project was initiated and we assigned the budget, we were being assured that we'd get both the renovation and the 24-hour facility for under the $400,000 budget. And obviously neither of those things have been able to be done. We then had the concept of this 24-hour facility being reasonably inexpensive in terms of what we achieved for it. And now I don't see the purpose of building it if it is such a substantial fee when we have a building there that we can strengthen and look at a later stage to do improvements. I can't justify the expense when it's sitting next to another facility.
Thank you. Councillor Ping, was it? No, I saw no. Huh?
I will say, yeah, because I'm a little bit confused and I totally support what Shannon's saying. When did it change from, I must have missed something. When did it change from having this plan to actually upgrading the other one? Maybe I was away and missed something, but.
Thanks for the comments. The chair summed it up wisely at the start, so that this is our favourite subject because it's been going on for a long time, since 1998. 1998. And right, so when did it change from upgrading the existing facility? So that changed quite some months ago when we got the price from the local contractor, which was close to $1 million, I think, to strengthen and upgrade the facility to a nice standard public toilet. And we came back to this committee with a recommendation saying, actually, we don't have that sort of money to throw at this, and came back with a price which was around $100,000 for a single cubicle toilet alongside the Peel Street toilet, and closing up the Peel Street toilet so that it was safe because, as you know, it's an earthquake-prone building. And then there was some discussion about single cubicle toilet being increased to a 2-cubicle toilet, and an indication given by the officer at the time that that would probably only add another $20,000 to the project. So we were looking at a $120,000 project. Now, Mr. Kennedy is right that the price has increased from that with the local contractor who we've been working with, and that's not the local contractor's fault. That's actually the work that we've done around it, and so the price now, I think we're estimating around $215,000 to do a double cubicle toilet on the Gladstone Road side of the existing building and close up the existing building because it's earthquake prone. Now, the thing that surprised me, well, the second thing that surprised me about this project was that actually we also got a letter from Council's Building Services Department, which basically said you still need to make your building, the existing Peel Street toilets, safe in the event of an earthquake. And my immediate response was, well, nobody's using it. What's the issue? And actually the issue is falling outwards of the building. And so what Leon's working through, Mr. Kennedy's working through at the moment is with the contractor, what are simple solutions to ensure that the building doesn't fall outwards so that we can actually get an exemption to that requirement. So that's where we are now. We have a $215,000 price on, which includes all those works around services, traffic management, because it's in a high traffic area, around building a new 2 cubicle unit beside the Peel Street toilet, closing the Peel Street toilet as a public convenience facility, and doing some basic strengthening within the existing building so that it doesn't fall outwards and crush people if there is a significant earthquake.
Thank you, Councillor Foster, then Councillor Paringhi.
Yeah, I was happy to move this, but my question was, once it's strengthened, is it possible to be released into another different activity? But now you're telling me that the new facility is going to be on the Gladstone Road side, because I could see a definite reuse of activity for that building had the new toilet was going to be, and my assumption was the new toilet was going to be at the back of, on the Childers Road side of the existing Peel Street toilets. Now you're saying the other side. I've got really big alarm bells coming, because all of a sudden the other alternative use or possible alternative use of that building is totally gone. So we're spending $120,000 odd to re-strengthen it, to actually land bank it, which to me is not money well spent. You know, I can visualize that building has got architectural heritage, and the frontage on it with the fencing, I can envisage it as a little cafe and a really cool part of our main street features with a toilet facility at the back of it. If you're going to put a toilet facility in the front of it, you're just taking any options away, I believe, of what's possible with that site. You know, the building itself has been, like I said, identified as a heritage building. It's part of the landscape of the CBD, and it could be prioritised into some other activity. That's that's where I'd lead. So I don't want to even have a bar of it if that Peel Street block is going to be put in front, because that just takes away the whole future of that structure in that area.
I just wanted to ask first, is there going to be a response in regards to the positioning of the toilets? Has that the back been looked at? Has that been costed? Just in response to Councillor Foster.
I'll go back to the local contractor and just confirm what the options are in regards to this, but currently the option looked at was the Gladstone Road site, but I'm not discounting the possibility that we could go to the Childers Road end. But I just need to obviously look at the figures regarding that.
Great, because similar to Councillor Foster, I'm actually comfortable with us moving forward on this, because the community wants us to spend this 400K in this area, and the cost that comes in under that spend. I do share similar concerns to Councillor Foster, because I had envisaged it in my head as well, being at that back end. So comfortable with this happening moving forward. It fits in with what the feedback I feel we got from the community at the time that this decision came to us in this form. Yeah, happy to support, but I would actually need to require the other information about if that's the cost for that back end of the toilet. So my thing is that that information needs to come back before.
Yeah, for myself, I'm kind of in line with the three gentlemen over there. The first one is that the first decision was made on the basis of the 110,000 that we thought we were going to be paying. Now that that's doubled, it's so much closer to, I mean, because the gap has got so much thinner, my decision making in the first place would have been different. It was based on the difference between 100,000 and what we're looking at. So I'm really concerned that that figure's gone up and how that's implicating on the decision that I made on different information. So I also want to see the designs, because is it going to fit? As Councillor Foster said, I can't see it fitting at the front. I think it would just compromise that whole area. I had always assumed it would be on the Childers Road side, and I think there might be traffic management issues if you get too close to the corner there as well. So yeah, do need to get some clarity around, I think we need to see it drawn up somehow as to how it fits into that whole location, because going forward like that, it is going to compromise what I was expecting out of this project. So, yeah, so two issues there, the figure going up, whereas we've still got indicated we're going to have to do significant earthquake work anyway. It's not going to be 200,000 and then, well, that's the price. The price of the earthquake strengthening, we don't know yet. We don't fully comprehend just how extensive those works might need to be. That could be a very significant figure already. So if that is a very significant figure, take away the 200,000 we're putting into Liv, we could be back at square one with sorting out the Peel Street toilets. Isn't this a great topic? Sorry, we've had you. Has anyone else before? I will come back to you. Yeah, Councillor Burdett.
1998, and very topical of 1998. Whatever is planned, having listened, I concur with those gentlemen over there. You know, we've got to get it right. The money thing is important, but we need to ensure that there is a toilet there. That's what the community told us. So from there, I'm not going to pontificate on the Field Street toilets anymore, because the other side of it has a heritage order on it, which we have to address too. So leave it to the staff, let them come back. I mean, it's another report, Mr. Chairman, but we want some detail and actually we can see what we're going to get. Maybe some kind fellow put his hand in his pockets and give us some money to refurbish it.
I know that will be met with some sort of animosity, but the fact is, there was that assumption of where the toilet was going and there was the assumption of the price. So unfortunately, I actually agree that we do need to have something back on this. What's that? Councillor McLean.
Can somebody tell me what the earthquake percentage or rating is on that building?
Less than 33%, which puts it at a significant high risk. So
That's interesting, because there's a few buildings around close to that, they're only 11%, and I don't see any urgency on those at this stage.
Through the chair, I think we've got, from being notified, we have 10 years, I think it is, to deal with our earthquake-prone buildings. And this is one earthquake-prone building, and I think there's a report to the committee this afternoon around earthquake-prone buildings as well, and there's a significant list of them in that report. So, look, I think if I recall correctly, 2022 is the date that we have to have dealt with this. Given the amount of backwards and forwards and discussion around this, I still feel like we will beat 2022, but actually we have needed this time to get through this issue. So I feel there's urgency with it, but we definitely need to get it sorted.
I propose to not accept these. I won't be accepting these recommendations, but I do want a paper back showing us the design implications for the area, where it's going to be, so that we can visualise how it fits, and some sort of clarity around what earthquake works we will have to do anyway, and try and get some costings on that, because a lot of my decision was on that initial price and an assumption of location. So my proposal would be just noting the report. You can't let it lie on the table after you've had extensive discussion, or can we? Yeah, okay, lie on the table might be the option. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. All those in favour? Oh, okay, yeah. 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 Well, yeah, it doesn't. If you're going to let it lie, technically the discussion should stop at that moment. Yeah. So I have moved to let it lie. Second, councillor Parry. All those in favour? Against, carried. And the advice we give the staff is next meeting, if possible. Yeah. All right, thanks for that. It often works like that. Yeah, sorry. Okay, page 38, the governance work plan. Noted on your paper for next one. Yep.
On the actual governance work plan itself, there are two township planning update items, one 2/3 of the way down and one right at the bottom. Just want clarification what that actually means. And then right in the middle of that is the East Cape Township Plan. Now, what does that mean? Because apart from a toilet and a bit of a parking area, there's nothing there.
Through the chair, I understand it's a duplication. So obviously the township planning updates will capture and reference East Cape Township Planning. But it's just making sure for noting that we're addressing East Cape Township Planning in the financial year.
It is a decision report, though, so the decision will be around the finance, will it?
Can you point me to?
It's got a D, online. What are we looking at? East Cape Township Plan? Oh, well, what about what's the decision on the East Cape Township Plan then? Yeah, it's noted for September.
The decision will be once we've finished the development of the plan, coming back for adoption.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Supplementary to that, Mr. Chairman, having heard Cato, I assume that our staff are going to come back to the communities to talk about finality of the plans.
Through the chair, engagement with the community is currently ongoing.
Okay, the recommendations adoption of the governance plan. Moved by councillor Burdett, second by councillor Faraheen, was it? Or was it? Yep. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Art and Public Places Trust, we've got Penny in the room somewhere. Yep.
I'll move this paper.
Oh, I thought you might. I thought you might. Moved by councillor. All right, we've got Penny here. Any questions? Was that originally cited to be on the other side or the? No, it was always going to be that side? Yeah. All right, looks like that's it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Ooh, too easy.
Can I just highlight that it should have had the costs associated with council's costs in this report, although we touched on it earlier, it being around 30K, but it would have been nice to have had it in here.
Yes, that's right, because the Art and Public Places Trust haven't yet given us the plans for the footing, so we can't cost them out yet. They will do all of the costing for it as well and give us the quote. And we've estimated that because that's what.
Yeah, would be nice.
Yeah.
And have an estimate
Oh,
around
sorry.
figures.
All right, thank you. Page 45, Lawson Field earthquakes. All right, yeah, I'll second that. Yeah, I had a walk through a few weeks ago. It's looking real good. It's looking good. Yeah.
Can I just make a real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate staff and contractors. I mean, this is probably one of the first huge projects, big projects that we've had that's come or on budget, or maybe under budget and under time. So great effort. Great to see, and hopefully this will be a legacy for all other projects to follow in that light. So we've set a standard. We need to keep that from now on.
Has the last bill been paid?
Can I just note that the council is, that the contractors also did an excellent job of finding recycling outlets for some of the waste materials. I now have a fantastic looking Lawson Field fence at my house.
Okay, nothing further. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And 46, the winter planting program update. Moved by councillor Burdett, seconded by councillor Fenn. Once again, looking at the species in that area, which is very problematic.
Yes, so through you, the Chair, the winter planting program, we have commenced already with some of the plantings. So as you'll probably know, the annual beds at the Botanical Gardens, those that are in the median strip, and the plant boxes in the CBD are replanted in the colder months. Probably the biggest thing for you to be aware of in the report is a change around the type of plants that we're planting in the median strip. And that's largely driven around health and safety for the team. So as you can imagine, there's not a lot of space to manoeuvre along the median strip. And as well, there's a level of qualification which is required to do work in the traffic corridor. Hence an internal review undertaken by Ariana and myself, which looks at cost savings, but primarily the driver is around health and safety and the storytelling that having those native plant species along 2.5 kilometres coming into our city provides.
Thank you. Councillor
Just a quick question. You've got in here about perennials will be available to the public. How does the public access the perennials they want to have them?
So when we start doing the work, at the end of the day, the plants will be available for everyone at Botanical Gardens. We will do a media release when we know exactly the date that we're going to start. And yeah, they can come and collect them from Botanical Gardens, not by the roads, too dangerous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the new plantings, which I think is magnificent, do you see any increased probability of damage or theft or anything like that on those type of plants?
No, I don't think people will steal those kind of plants. Yeah.
How long have you been in Gisborne?
12 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's unknown.
Yeah, I know what kind of plants they like, and I don't think they will. Yeah.
So the plants we do for the median strip are plants that the community doesn't like.
No, they won't steal them.
Sorry.
They don't normally steal plants from the road corridor. Yeah, it's not easily accessible for them. Yeah, but who knows?
And highly visual.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Oh, yeah.
Right, there we go.
Yep.
So Ariana will lead the presentation.
Okay, yes. Here, if I stay here, great. So
The winter planting already started. We are nearly finished, so now I'll tell you about what we've done and what is about to be completed. So this year, we're changing a few things around town, and the main one and the biggest one will be the median strip that I will show you soon. It's going to be a big job for us, but I think the main reason why we're doing it is health and safety, like Diane mentioned. So, yes. Next. So the key dates for us, first one there is the median strip geranium removal. I don't know if you are familiar with that section, but at the moment we only have one of the main plants in the middle. All the rest have been removed, waiting for the big planting coming up in July. So at the moment the median strip is looking pretty tidy. Yeah. We are at the moment working, it's work in progress, our planting. You've seen Fitzherbert Roundabout done recently. Kelvin Park, it's about to be done. And yeah, we just have a few more gardens that we'll show you soon. Botanical Gardens is all done. If you go for a walk there, you'll see all the lovely new flowers, lots of colors, and yeah, different mix of plants to make it a nice visual impact for everyone. So Botanical Gardens, we have, I don't know if I need to go in detail on this, but we have about 4 garden beds. Go for a visit, they have just been planted. So yeah, they're looking great at the moment. CBD pots, work in progress at the moment. They were looking fantastic, so it was a shame to remove the lovely looking flowers there, but they needed to go. They won't survive winter. So at the moment they're looking quite empty, but they will be planted in the next couple of days. Yes, that's the town clock is empty at the moment as well, empty-ish. Just a few empty spots there. And plants are going in, weather dependent, hopefully tomorrow. Pardon?
Yeah, I was just saying, they've been repainted.
Yes, true. Fitzherbert Roundabout has just been planted on Monday. Yes, Monday. So it's looking green, but they will flower soon. That one is already done as well. It will be very colorful. At the moment, it's still looking green, but wait a few weeks and it'll be fine. This is one of the gardens that we want to go perennial as well. We want to try to reduce the amount of annuals we have around, especially on the road. So this one is going to change to go perennial. It's looking really nice at the moment, so it's going to stay like this until the plants start looking ugly. But yeah, it's going to look very colorful, and that will reduce the amount we spend on that garden. Yeah. And those are the variety of plants that we're going to be using for the median strip. So yes, it's a mix of flaxes, carex, liberta. So we tried to choose a variety of plants to still have a bit of color. So it's not just plain green natives. Yes, so, and it's gonna be a mix of them all along the median strip. It's not gonna be like flaxes, libertias, and that is gonna be mixed all along. And that's going to reduce the amount of time we spend on the road, like a lot, because at the moment, in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, we've been planting that area twice a year, and it takes us about 4 to 6 weeks to get it all done. Yeah, so it's cost savings and maintenance. It's not easy for us to maintain that place, so that's why we thought about making this big decision. Yes, so the reasons why we want to go all native for the median strip are health and safety. That's the main one. It's health and safety. When we go there to plant, so I already mentioned we spend 4 to 6 weeks every single day from 7 to 3 p.m., which is very dangerous. The cones won't stop the vehicles. They are just there to protect our workers, but if there's any accident, they won't stop any vehicles. Maintenance, yeah, we do need to go there about 2 or 3 days a week for the whole year, for the whole day. So, and we have a very small team, so we can't do that, unfortunately. Cost savings, yes, cost savings is huge. So yeah, we're gonna see that on the next financial year, because the initial cost will be slightly higher, replacing all the plants, and we're gonna probably spend a bit more time there than usual. But then after that, maintenance and ongoing will be huge cost saving. Yes.
Sorry, can we just get an idea of the maintenance required on that? Like obviously saving costs, it's going to take you a couple of months each year.
Yeah, so ideally for this new garden, we would probably spend maybe 1 day a week. And maybe hopefully less. It's something that we need to wait and see how the plants grow on that environment and all that. We're trying to have a ground cover plant as well to avoid getting all these weeds. But we just need to wait and see. But it will definitely be less time than what we're currently spending.
You'll see in the report as well, we talked about the savings. So the median strip maintenance cost is around 105 a year. And now we're looking at 25 a year. So within the operations budget that Andrew has frequently raised as being a real struggle for us to achieve what the customer would like to see within these spaces. This is a smart way of moving forward so that we can get more done within the same budget or increase the budget in future years. But yeah, and safety, absolutely.
Just kind of out of the meeting and that, but when you were talking about stolen plants here, I was thinking, oh, you know, that's good that people won't steal the plants. I've got a property, 3 houses in a row. We go down a long driveway, and all down the fence line was the most magnificent dahlias from years and years and years ago. You know, the guy had planted the probably some 40, 50 years old in species that in colours that you've never seen before. I arrived there one day and my tenant said, oh, there was a guy here the other day and he had a wheelbarrow and a spade. And he'd gone along and dug out all my dahlia bulbs and taken them away in his wheelbarrow. And poor Dahlia just marched in and they've been there for decades and he just marched in and took it all. Yep, cleaned me out. There's the odd one here and there, you know. It was just, I was so gutted.
That's the guy who bought it off. Still thinking about it.
No, I bought it because he was no longer around.
Is that the?
I think that's it. Yep, just a noting report. Well done. Thank you.